So for tonight's homework, we're going to be using the inequality symbols greater than or less than. So remember that the opening when an inequality symbol is always going to open to the larger of the two numbers. Okay, so the smaller number will be on the smaller side of the opening. For each of these, you don't need to give the brief explanation for the benchmark, but what you can do is you can use the space underneath to draw a number line. So this is something we practice in class. So remember, we're drawing the 0, the 1, and the half. And then we're thinking about, on the top, what the fourths would be. So we know 0 would, of course, be 0 out of 4. 1 whole would be 4 out of 4. So if we think about what's halfway, well, what's half of 4? It's 2/4. So the equivalent fraction to half is 2/4. Well, if we have 3/4, 3/4 is then greater. So we would put this symbol in here. Okay? Anytime that you're doing this, when you draw the original number line, you want to draw 0, 1, and half. And you want to think about what the equivalent fraction is above for the one you're dealing with. In this case, it would be eighths. So you'd ask yourselves, how many eighths make a whole? 8 eighths. 0 eighths makes 0. And what's halfway? Well, what's half of 8? 4 eighths. So if we know that, we can ask ourselves, well, where's 7 eighths? 7 eighths is probably here. So if we think about our first point, half, which is this, compared to here, half is less than 7 eighths. This becomes a little bit more challenging when you see the numbers starting to change a little bit. So those two were compared to half. When we get down here, we're seeing 2/3, 2/5, 9/10, 3/5. So you want to think the same way about the number line. The part that's hard about the number line when you think about thirds and fifths is that there's no equivalent to half. So what you'd have to do is think about where these would lie otherwise. So when I think of thirds, I did 0 thirds, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, right? And then if I did the same thing with fifths, I can even think of it on the same number line. This up here would be 5/5, right? This would be 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. You get the idea. It's a little crowded in there. But you can see the two numbers you're looking at, 2/3, which is here, compared to 2/5, which is here. So you can see that 2/3 is greater than. The other thing you want to think about is how close these are to 1 whole. 2 out of 3 compared to 2 out of 5. 9/10 compared to 3/5. So thinking about those in relationship to the 0, half, and 1 should also help you be comparative. When you have numbers that have the same denominator, you're just going to compare which is greater in the numerator, 49 or 50. And here you're probably going to have to think about the number line. This is just going to be a little bit more than half, right? 50 is half. So what's half of 16? 8, which this is a little bit less than, and this is a little bit more than half. This is a little bit less than half. So this should be less than. So it's really about estimation.